Hello, and thank you for checking out today's independent annuity review. Today we're going to be taking a close look at the Allianz 222 Fixed Index Annuity. And it's been a few months since my last really in-depth review, so I may be a little bit rusty, but I hope you'll bear with me. Usually in these reviews it takes me about 20 to 40 minutes. I know that's a lot of time, but this is really important stuff. If you're thinking about buying this or any annuity, they are long-term investments. They come with usually penalties if you take your money out early. So it's much better that you spend an extra 20 or 30 minutes and really understand how it works and what the real return potential is, because oftentimes what the agents tell you and how it works in real life are entirely different. So what you see up in front of you right now, on the right, this is the Allianz website. So this just kind of gives us a little bit of an overview on the product. And we'll start here, and I'll kind of go through some of the main things that an agent might talk to you about if you're thinking about buying this annuity. So the name 222, the way that comes from is actually there are two ways. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, make this a little easier for people to read. You can see here it comes from the different ways that you can get sort of benefits, I suppose. So it has two different ways to get a bonus. So we'll talk about those in a little bit. Two different ways to receive income increases, and two ways to get a death benefit. So that's where the name comes from, 2, 2, and 2. Now as far as the bonus really only applies to what they call the protected income value. And annuities like this, they have a few different features. So the industry, maybe not the whole industry, but quite a few people have been using the term hybrid annuity. And they kind of have adopted that term because it's annuities that do more than one thing. In the case of this annuity, it has a regular growth option, so a way that your money grows even if you don't take regular income or go into a nursing home. You just let it sit there for 10 years, let's say, and take your money out. So that's kind of the most basic, simple way this annuity works. It also has a way to create a guaranteed lifetime income, and that's based on this protected income value. It's in some ways simple how to calculate it, in other ways it's a little bit tricky, and I'll actually show you exactly how I built this test so that you can see how it might work in your unique situation. The actual protected income value, the two ways it gets a bonus is one, there's a bonus right up front on any money that you put in the first 3 years. You kind of see that right here. And then also, once you decide to take income and receive this sort of lifetime income, as long as you wait at least 10 years, so we can see there's a little footnote here, and if we go down to receive the protected income value, including any bonuses and interest, you must hold your annuity in deferral for at least 10 years and begin receiving lifetime income withdrawals between the ages of 60 and 100. It says you will not receive the premium bonus or potential interest bonuses if the contract is partially or fully surrendered. So you have to make sure that you don't do that. If traditional annuity payments are taken or if the protected income value rider is terminated. So we can kind of see there's some stipulations as far as how you get that money. There may be some ways around this, but the easy way to think about this is, hey, you need to make sure you stay committed for 10 years before taking money out. That's that first two ways that you get some benefit. The second two ways are the income increases. So the income increases are going to be based on partially the bonus, actually. So you get increases to your income based on the earned interest and a 50% interest bonus. So kind of like this first bonus where after 10 years, excuse me, you get a bonus to the base by which your income is calculated. You also, after even you take income, your income can go up if you just earn interest. So let's say you earn interest of 4% in a year, your income will actually go up because there's going to be an adjustment that's 4% plus an additional 50, which would be 6%. This again is a little bit complicated. When I show the spreadsheet that shows how this is actually determined, it'll make a lot more sense. There's also a way that if you go into an eligible nursing home, hospital, or assisted living facility, you can also get a double income benefit. You can see down here there's a couple different stipulations. So it says you have to be confined to a qualified hospital, nursing facility, or assisted living facility for at least 90 days, all in a consecutive 120-day period. The confinement must occur after the first contract year and either during the contract year before the start of lifetime income withdrawals or any time thereafter. Again, some stipulations there, but it is, as the name implies, two different ways you can get an increase in income. And then there's two ways to receive a death benefit. So if you don't ever use this and it just goes on to your beneficiaries, they can either get the full accumulation value in a lump sum, or they can actually receive the full protected income value as annuity payments over 5 years. So it's important that we actually calculate, what is that protected income value to determine what the death benefit might be. If we click on this, how the product works, it then goes into a little bit more description talking about if you're saving, kind of how you can increase that protected income value. Your income payments, if you're using the guaranteed lifetime income, it's always going to be based on that protected income value. So again, I'll show you how to calculate that. It's not incredibly tricky, but unless you're pretty good with something like Microsoft Excel or pretty talented in math, it's not the easiest thing in the world to look at and calculate. But we'll show you how to do that. It then talks about what happens once you start income. So again, it's kind of going back to that 2-2-2 concept. So it's showing you once you start getting income, how your withdrawals can increase based on the interest you earn plus an additional interest bonus. So those are some additional information. If you need to get to this page, it's pretty darn simple. You just go to allianzlife.com, and when you click on their annuities, which is this tab up here in the top, you'll see their different products over here. The Allianz 222, so one of the reasons why I'm doing a review of this right now is this has been one of the most requested products from people who visit Annuity Gator. There's a couple other Allianz products that I'll be getting to hopefully in the next couple of months, the 360 and 365i, and they all have some similarities. So when I go into those, you'll see that, again, there's some components that are similar. But they also have differences. So, depending on your situation, one may be better than the others. And the truth is, you'll see after I show the way the math calculates, there may just be better annuities altogether. Again, there's nothing inherently wrong. Allianz is a very financially strong company, and these products are selling like hotcakes, which tells me really it's because of one of two reasons. Either they're really super, super good, which again, they're okay, they're decent, they're above average, I guess I should say, kind of like a B student, we'll call it. Or they pay really nice commissions to the folks who sell them, or it could be some combination of the two. So, we just want to make sure that when you're thinking about your money and what you've saved your entire life to accumulate, the last thing you want to do is get into some type of long-term commitment without understanding how it really works. And whenever we look at annuities, because they do pay commissions, we have to have at least a little bit of us that is, sort of a skeptic, if you will. And that's okay. Never be, afraid to be a skeptic. A skeptic is just someone who's going to get into decisions more carefully. Now, another huge talking point that we hear all the time is about a new index crediting method. So the way you earn interest, and which also really applies to how this protected income value works, can be tied to how you actually earn interest. And one of the things that's been added to some of these new breed Allianz fixed index annuities is an index crediting method based on the Barclays U.S. Dynamic Balance Index. And a lot of the folks who are selling this annuity will tell you this is the greatest index since sliced bread and power steering. It's a pretty solid concept, but one of the things that's really, really important that people understand is it's just a concept. If you go to the actual Barclays website, so to find this, just type in U.S. Dynamic Balance Index. You'll find the Barclays site. You'll be able to find this very page we're looking at here. And you'll see there's a section up here in the top right that goes on to say, hey, this index didn't actually become a real index until October 14, 2013. So if an agent tells you, hey, this index has been around since 1989, which is about 25 years, and over that 25 years, it's returned, whatever percent they claim, 7% or 6% or 8%. That's not a true statement. Someone who tells you that is not being honest and forthcoming. I personally would not want to get financial advice from someone who's not honest. The honest statement would be, hey, an index is a simple concept. All an index is it's a set of rules that automatically makes decisions. An easy way to think about this is a common index like the S&P 500. It just has two rules. So the S&P 500 are the 500 largest companies in the United States of America. And then they're weighted. So the way that they're weighted, it's not like 500 and they all represent 0.2%. They're actually weighted by size. So the biggest companies make up the largest percentage. So just two simple rules. That's how the S&P 500 was created. So the U.S. Dynamic Balance Index, it's going to have a set of rules. So the reason why they're able to go back and say, hey, this is how it would have done going back to 1989 is because they're taking that set of rules by which the index was built and just back testing it. They're going back in time and saying, hey, this is what would have happened over the 25 years. But in reality, it's only been around, I mean, as of today, about 8 months or so. So it doesn't really have a long proven history. In fact, if we look at like the last 6 months of returns, you know, this is all live. It goes back to November of last year, and we can customize this and go back to its real inception. So if we go back, for example, and we hit custom, and we scroll back to October, and we want to say, well, what's this done since it's been a real live actual index? We'll go to October. Oh, excuse me, that took us to 2012. We want to go to October 2013. Pardon me. So we're going to October 14, 2013 through today, hit OK, and we can see here's the actual live index data. It's had a total return of 4.44%. If you were to have kept that up for a full 12 months, it would equal 8.66. So again, nothing bad, nothing to be ashamed of. It's a good, solid, real live return. Pardon me, but it's not a 25-year return. So in any event, that's not really why I'm pointing this out. One of the reasons I took everyone to this site and wanted to show this is because one of the things we have to do is look at, okay, because so much of the 222 annuity is going to be based on your index crediting. And when we look at the different index crediting options, the one that gives the highest return potential is this U.S. Dynamic Balance Index. And the way that it works is it's a annual point to point. So if you started on May 1st of 2014, we'll look at what the return is next year, 365 days later. And then the return is going to be what the index went up by minus what's called a spread. A spread is, in my view, kind of just another term for a fee, though I think, legally it's not necessarily a fee. It's just how much of the return gets taken away before it gets credited to your account. So one of the things that's great, again, is on this site, there's a little spot that says Index History. And by clicking on this Index History, it's going to give you an Excel file, Microsoft Excel file, that'll give you all of the historical values. So even the back-tested values to 1989. And with that, we can actually determine, okay, well, had we had this going back that number of years, and we applied that spread, what would the return potential be? Pardon my cough, everybody. I seem to be getting a little cold. So if we go over to this spreadsheet, which I created on the left here, this is going to actually show us that very data. So when you first get it, it would just have columns A and B. And those are just the dates and the actual U.S. Dynamic Balance Index values. I have it scrolled down so it's showing the more recent history. Showing the more recent history down here. But if we scrolled up, you'd see we can go all the way back. If I went all the way to the top, it would take us back to March 1st of 1989, again, about 25 years ago. So all it is, we took those different data points and I calculated all of the different possible 365-day returns. So these percentages you see here, like when it says 5.99%, April 23rd of 2014, that means the last 365 days, the indexes went up 5.99%. I then just added a simple column over here, which would tell you the net return after the spread. It would show us that the past 12 months, this would be up 4.09%. And that would be the return. If someone had had this a year ago, again, mind you, it didn't actually exist a year ago, but if you could have had this exactly as it's constructed today, the return would have been 4.09% after 1 year. And right below that, I calculated the averages. So these two cells we see here at the bottom, this is just what the average, it's not the annualized return. So keep in mind that when investment returns compound, they'll actually grow the return when they're positives. This is just the average. So it's what the average or the median return, or mean return, would be of all of these thousands. And you can see here on the left, we're talking there's 6,000 plus pieces of data that we're looking at. So the average of that 6,000 plus would be before the spread 7.29%, after the spread 5.39%. So if someone's telling you, hey, this is the greatest index and you can make huge returns, you make wonderful returns, look, the returns are not bad, but net of the 1.9% spread, it's 5.39%. It's not 7, it's not 8, it's not 10, it's 5.39. So again, nothing wrong with that. It's just important that you just don't take people's word for things. You want to actually do the homework. And based on the homework, we can see that if this thing works like it's planned, so when they do a back test does not mean that you're going to get that return. In fact, it says right on that Barclays site, this is hypothetical. It's based on a back test, and hypothetical performance data results may not be indicative of future performance. My view is when I look at a back test, that's like your best case scenario because it was built with the benefit of hindsight. You know, if we knew all of the rules that we could put into our index and create a portfolio that had great returns and consistent returns and didn't do bad even in down markets, of course, you know, it's going to back test really well. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the same reasons why it would have back tested well will actually be true in the future. So I would look at this again as somewhat of a best case scenario, that the way it was designed, it actually works. Now there's a chance it could do better, there's a chance it could do worse, but I certainly wouldn't expect any more than what the back test is. That's just my opinion on back testing. So if we look at this, this is really helpful because we need this number, this 5.39, in order to do accurate calculations on how this would work in the real world. Meaning, if you put your money in this product and we take all those different features, you know, the 2 features. So how does it roll up and create that protected income value? How does it work if you don't use the protected income value? You just want to take your money out, pull it out in 5 years or 8 years or 15 years. We need to have a number like this so we can determine, well, what might that look like? So the next sheet I'm going to show you is a very hypothetical sheet, but it takes that number that we calculated, the 5.39, applies it to the other formulas inside of the Allianz 222 annuity, and allows us to do some math. All right, so I'm going to make this just a hair bigger so people can see it. Okay, so now that we have this up and it's a little bit bigger and easier to see, this is where the really extreme geekery begins, because calculating how this annuity or any annuity works can be a little bit tricky. And so I've built an Excel spreadsheet that makes it all make a little bit more sense anyway. And probably the most important thing it's going to tell us is what's the real return potential of this annuity. And I think that what this also helps us understand is kind of not just what the potential is. This is all kind of almost like your best case scenario. It's again, it's possible it could be a little bit better, but it's actually possible it could be worse too. So this is what I would call realistic return expectations. If people are showing you anything that ends up being higher than what I reveal in the next 10-15 minutes, I would run, not walk, and find someone who's going to be a little bit more honest and forthcoming with you. So here's what we're calculating here. I've built a hypothetical example. In this example, we have 2 investors, so a couple, and that couple is both age 60, so we can see that here. We're going to just show $100,000 because it's a nice, easy, round number. That's right up here at the top. It then says bonus 15%, but mind you, the bonus in this case only applies to the protected income value. It doesn't actually apply to the growth account or real money value. So we're going to be able to see kind of how those 2 different values play together in this illustration. I then also put in here the life expectancy for a couple who's 60 years old. This comes directly from the Internal Revenue Service, so they let us know what the average life expectancy if you have a couple, both age 60. Obviously, one person is more likely to die sooner than the other, but the longer of the 2 should live about 26 years. This is really important because when we think about these lifetime income benefits, things like the protected income value and how that generates a guaranteed income, you know, it's going to work better the older you are. So the longer you live past your life expectancy, the better it tends to work out. If you don't happen to live to even your life expectancy, then more than likely it'll have provided no value to you. If you live just a few years extra, though, it can make a big difference, and we'll see that in just a bit. I then have the distribution, and I'll show you how this was calculated in a second, but this is what the calculation would be if we have a 60-year-old couple. They start Because the contract tells us we need to wait 10 years, they're going to wait until age 70. And at age 70, using our, again, our calculated return, we used this spreadsheet over here on the left for that tells us that one might expect possibly to earn 5.39%. We took that data, applied it over here, and that's going to give us a return possibility of the income. So it's going to actually help us determine that protected income value, which is, again, a non-real money. You can't just like go take all that money anytime you want, but it is a dollar amount that will be calculated to help us know how much income we get in 10 years. So as we go, we can see there's no income rider expense. That is a positive on this product, is that some annuities, they charge you an extra fee if you're going to have a rider for either death benefit or for a nursing home or for lifetime income. In the case of the 222, there is no fee, and the only real fee you pay is like if you're using that Barclays index and it has a spread of 1.9, that's your cost, is just the difference between what that index returns and what you receive. That's the only real cost. The actual riders themselves don't have a specific charge to them. So with all that data, we can calculate this big old mess of data down below it. So I'm going to scroll down a touch. I'm going to blow this up just a little bit bigger because I know most of my readers, they need to be just a hair larger so they can make some sense of it. And I'm going to walk through what these different rows and columns mean and kind of the bottom line for potential investors. All right, so the first column we see, column C, what this is telling us is the cumulative income. And the cumulative income is just if you're using that guaranteed income base, if we have this 5.39% growth from our dynamic balance index, it's going to create a growth rate of your protected income value. There's a formula then applied to that to tell you what your income is. And the cumulative income is just the sum of all the income payments one would get. Now, the way we came up with the income, this $13,860, is that after 10 years, whatever the income value grows to, if a couple is 70 years old, if you're looking at what kind of income can be guaranteed for two people's life at age 70, it's 5% of whatever your income base was. So 5% of this income base, which I'll show you how this was calculated in just a minute, is $13,860. Now, you may remember when we looked at the Allianz 222, it said that there's an opportunity to actually get increases to your income. Now, unless I'm doing something incredibly wrong, which I don't believe that I am, I don't think that it's highly likely people are going to get increases to their income. And what I mean by that is one of the ways that the income can increase is this protected income value can go up based on the return of the hypothetical growth account. Here are 5.39 plus an extra 50%. So this protected income account value, if it hits 277, if we're earning 5.39, plus we get that extra bonus to roll that base value, that protected income value higher, means it would have a return of just about 8% or so. So if we can actually get that number, so this 277, if we can get it to grow at a rate that's greater than the distribution rate, then we can have increased distributions each year. However, if our distributions are high, so let's just say again, once it locks in this 13,860, if you don't quite generate enough return, because this protected income value, you do have to subtract the income payments that you get. So if we get down to this 11th year and we've grown the protected income value up to 277, one of the things that we have to do is we have to take that 277 and we have to subtract from it the income that we were going to receive, and then we have to multiply it by the actual income base. So when we do that, it's going to create a roll-up value that can go up. So we'll see that happening here, and I'm just going to do this live so you can see how that would work in, again, a hypothetical scenario. And then we just need to roll that out the rest of these years. So I'll show you how this would play out. And there you go. So what this is telling us is that by getting that extra bonus, so what I did is I just added, by the way, in that extra bonus minus the distribution. So we can see that if the product is able to get a good enough return, then this roll-up rate works quite well. If for some reason, though, let's just say that the index is only able to produce a return of 4%, Well, if it generates a return of 4%, then your income increases are going to be pretty modest because 4% plus a 50% bonus is 6%. 6% is awfully close to the same distribution rate, so there's barely any compound growth in your protected income value. If we get this 5.39, then it actually works out okay because you're going to find that you'll have 13,860 the first year, the next year it might go up to 14, and 14,6, and 15, and so forth. So that's how that protected income value works. And then we see this cumulative income growing over here and just kind of gives us a little bit of a heads up. Now, one of the things that I tried to put in here is when we think about that protected income value, I wanted to have a row over here that shows us how long it takes to break even. So we can see in this case that it would take until year 17 to actually create a return. In other words, to have had enough guaranteed income to create a positive return. You've gotten paid back more income than what you originally put in. So if you start this at age 60, just know that if you're a couple, you're 60 years old, more than likely you're going to have to live at least to age 77 for that income rider to even break even. After that, it starts creating a positive return, and this is then your net positive return. We can see that you end up doubling your money in about 23 years and tripling your money in roughly 28 years. So in doing all of those calculations on the actual income rider, I then created this more simplistic column here, J, which helps us understand what does that equal. I mean, what would that be the equivalent to as far as the annualized return? Like if I put my money in something else, what would that be like receiving? And in this case, we can see that over 20 years, it would be like receiving 3.12%. Over 25 years, it'd be like receiving 5.58%. And over 30 years, it'd be like receiving 6.87%. So just like I mentioned before, the longer you live, the better this can potentially work out for you. And you know, if I were to run this out, let's say to 35 years or 40 years, you'll see that it just keeps getting sort of better and better and better. The longer you live past your life expectancy, the more value there is in that income rider. But really the first 20 years, there's pretty much no value at all. It's more of just a peace of mind thing that if everything else in the financial world melts down, you've still got that income. But again, if everything else melts down in the financial world, meaning if someone's saying, well, hey, worst case scenario, that's pretty darn good. Well, just mind you that worst case scenario means that your hypothetical growth account is not doing what it did the last 25 years. The last 25 years really, in spite of how bad the last 14 or 15 years have been since 2000, if someone was a balanced investor, kind of like this dynamic balance index, the last 25 years have still been really, really good. So when we think about this 5.39, if someone's trying to say, well, what's my worst case scenario? Well, your worst case scenario is what if that doesn't actually create any positive return for you? In other words, what if you don't get any index credits at all and all you're left with is your bonus? And your bonus on that protected income value only gives you that 15% up front. There's no additional big bonuses in later years, which means your income could be as low as $8,250 and it doesn't then ever increase. And so what ends up happening is after 30 years, all you did is basically got your money back plus $165,000, which is the same as making 2.66%. So if we don't get any really good returns at all, this does not work out all that well for you. Instead, all you really get is, again, some income. And now, again, that's just to show people the worst case. Again, we'll look at this and say, okay, well, what's an optimistic outlook? The next 25 years is like the last 25 years, so we keep getting this 5.39. Well, this is how this would look for you. So again, it's not too bad. But just know that if we're thinking about, why people buy annuities, one of my hangups with this type of a product is that your worst case scenario is pretty lousy. I mean, 30 years and making a couple percent a year is nothing to write home about. There's better options out there when measured by worst case scenario. Now, if we're looking at best case scenario, your best case scenario is going to be really one of two things. It's either going to be you live a really long time, and because of that, that guaranteed income base ends up being, paying you a bunch more money than you put in, or this dynamic balance index works out really, really well, and you get a great return, like the 5 or the 6%. So that's what I calculated over here on the growth account. The growth account's really, really simple. It just takes this 5.39% and just shows the money growing out to the 10th year. After that, of course, we're taking distributions. So our distributions are going to be making that value go down. And then the real cash value of this type of an account would be $0 after 26 years. There'd be nothing left in it. You'd have no liquidity, but you'd still have that lifetime income. And since your protected income value could still be theoretically growing, you could still have increasing income possibly. But the actual sort of growth account, if you will, is not, going to be able to likely keep up with what that protected income value is. You can see here again, 25 years is when it would run out. But over that 25 years, there would have been a decent gain. I calculated that over here in column I. So column I is telling us that what's the real net return. You'll see it's negative the first couple years. That's because if you cancel an annuity while it's still in its surrender period, so we can see the surrender schedule, I put that over here in column H. So net of the surrenders, if you get the interest from your hypothetical growth investment, like the dynamic balance index, after you pay your penalty, you'd walk away with a small loss the first couple years. Then you finally start to create a positive return, and then we start to see the money grow and compound. And of course, the longer that we have this, the better that it works out. Now, one of the things I did on the growth account is I gave it the better of two scenarios. Because your growth account, even if your money ran out, if you're still getting income payments, well, those income payments would be the equivalent of growth. So those start then, factoring in for your growth versus, the fact that you're not making any gains because your actual principal is now down to zero. So in the end, so I've explained how this works. Hopefully you can all see that, it is a bit complicated. With a name like 222, which seems like a very simple name, we think this is a very simple product. But the way I look at it is that there's ultimately two main reasons people would buy this. They're going to buy it because of the guaranteed lifetime income, or they're looking at it as just a place where, hey, I can put my money here, my principal is safe, and it's guaranteed by an insurance company based on their claims paying ability. And if this U.S. Dynamic Balance Index or whatever other crediting method, there are some other more traditional crediting methods available. So whatever those methods are, you might be able to get some growth there. Now, when push comes to shove, if we're just measuring this annuity based on those two components, here's kind of the cold hard facts. If we go to a worst case scenario, this is not a very desirable product. Your growth account and your income account really are not all too hot. You're going to be looking at a break-even point 20 plus years down the road, and only if you live a few years past life expectancy to even make 2% or better return. So I'm not a huge fan of that from a worst case scenario standpoint. If we look at kind of a best case scenario, it's possible this could work well. But if we look at best case scenarios on other products, there's a few other products kind of like this that have a uncapped, more new age kind of dynamic type of index. Those have higher return potential. So when we're looking at your best case scenario, this is going to fall a little bit short compared to other products on a best case scenario basis. And then if we're looking at the worst case scenario, it's going to fall short on a worst case scenario basis. So it's definitely not a bad product. I like to say that, look, if this was a student and I was the teacher, this might be a B or maybe even a B plus. It's not the 4.0, valedictorian of the class on either the best case scenario or the worst case scenario, but it is a well-rounded product issued by a very strong carrier. So what you kind of have to ask yourself when looking at this is, what are your needs? And everybody's different. The best way for you to determine if this is a good fit is to have it tested. So if you think that this might be a product you'd want to buy, someone's telling you you should buy it, but you want to be absolutely sure, just reach out. We do this for free. It's not a way to try to hurt anybody's sales. I certainly don't want to offend insurance agents that are out there selling annuities. If they are telling you the right stuff, then everything will check out and you can move forward and buy with confidence. I just think most people would rather spend that extra time, do some extra due diligence to make sure they're getting a fair shake. And if we can just take an extra 5 minutes to help you do that by plugging your data in here, we're happy to do so. If you have any questions at all, a couple different ways you can ask questions. You can just use the comment feature below this video. Just know that when you use the comment feature, that is public. So if you type in your name and you write a question, it might be wise just to use your first name only and don't reveal like all of the actual financial data in your situation. If you want to be more specific and ask things that are personal and feel open and about sharing that, that's completely fine too. Just make sure you use the have an annuity question button. So up at the top of the site, there's a have an annuity question button or kind of a link. Also in this post, you'll see a couple spots where I put in there, hey, if you have a question, click this button or click this link. It'll take you to a confidential and secure contact form. It's going to allow you to ask anything you want. You can be as specific as you want. And the better info you share with us, the better feedback we can give you. I'm always happy to help point people in the right direction. So I hope you got a lot of value from this video review. I know they're always a bit long, but they're also incredibly important that before you make, with a big chunk of your money, a decision that really might end up being a lifetime, a rest of your life decision, you don't want to rush into it. Slow down, take a deep breath, do some additional homework, and if you need a little bit of free help, we're happy to do that. It's no problem. Just feel open to reach out, and again, we'll point you in the right direction. Thanks for checking out this review, and I look forward to sharing more annuity reviews in the coming months.